Welcome back, Mastercrafted Gaming fans. Kyle here to answer a question that I see all the time on the internet. I get from retailers as well. People that are looking to get into Kings of War, they don't know what army to start with. This is a common issue, especially if you've been coming from Warhammer Fantasy Battles or another game system where you've probably got a preconceived notion about how your army should play. Either how they played that other system or just visually and aesthetically what you think that they're going to do based on how they look, the type of weapons that they carry on the models, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to talk to you about are the 4 basic play styles that accompany playing Kings of War. Now, the most important thing to consider is that any army can be played any way that you want. The most common answer that you will see for any time this question is asked is play what you like. The thing that we say the most is that we want you to pick an army that is going to speak to you visually. Something that when you see the models and the range that's available, you want to paint them, you want to put them together. You're going to invest a lot of money into this project, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you want it to go well. So if you need to pick one to start small, that's always very important. But pick something that speaks to you visually, something that gives you that fuzzy feeling on the inside when you look at it and you see it and you say, oh man, I love goblins. That's just beautiful. Whatever it happens to be, whatever your style is, whatever speaks to you, that's the most important thing. It's the thing you're going to be looking at the most, sitting there painting those models, taking as much time as possible, sitting there digging through army lists and different builds. That's going to be the most important thing. But ultimately, Kings of War comes down to 4 distinct play styles. When you put the models down on the table, how are they going to perform based on their stats, their army rules, etc.? Again, any army can play to any play style. That's never a problem, but some armies do certain things better than others. The 4 main playstyles that I see in Kings of War are a grindy army, or something that's going to basically want to engage and they're going to beat you with nerve or over time. They're going to use a lot of unit strength, big units, lots of bodies on the table. The second is Alpha Strike, and Alpha Strike are going to be armies that just hit you really hard. They're fast, they have high crushing strength, thunderous charge values, high attacks, low melee numbers on their dice, that sort of thing. So they're going to get across the table, they want to hit you hard, they want to hit you fast, and they want to take you off before you have a chance to hit back. And then there's shooty armies, which Boo and Hiss get a lot of kind of negative flack, but it is a part of the game. It's something that is built into a lot of different armies, and shooting is still a very powerful tool even in Kings of War 2nd edition. The last build is going to be a finesse build, and what this really is kind of a combination of all of those things. Sometimes the army really needs to take advantage of some special rules, some unique play, some kind of tricks in the way that you move things around, or even some things like Surge. You're trying to take advantage of hidden details in the army in order to get a better result. So these armies and their playstyle is not going to stand out as being overwhelmingly good. Nothing is going to jump out at you and be like, wow, that's amazing. But they can do a little bit of everything, and if you put it together right, then you can have a really nice finesse army. So armies that I think grind really well would be the Dwarfs, the Abyssal Dwarfs, Kingdoms of Men, Goblins, Orcs, Undead, Nature, Empire Dust, Ratkin, Salamanders, and Trident Realms. These are all armies that, in my opinion, have either high defense, large bodies of nerve that they can take in droves, like in the case of goblins and things like that. Sometimes when we look at it, between goblins and undead, goblins are going to win out because they are cheaper, but undead can still do this. So it's important to know that, again, any army can do any play style, but these are ones that can do it well. Forces of Nature, again, grindy because they've got a lot of high defense. They got a lot of access to heals in their army. Empire Dust is very similar to Undead. Both of them have, Life Leech sort of inherently built in. Ratkin and Goblins are similar because you've got just masses of body, high unit strength, that sort of thing. Salamanders and Orcs in particular, because of their base sizes, really. You're going to take advantage of hordes and pumping up nerve values to be able to do things effectively in large numbers. Trident Realms because of Ensnare, so your opponent's going to be, challenged to hit you from the front. Armies like Dwarves and Abyssal Dwarfs, they're going to be slower. They can have big bodies and high defense, especially. And Kingdoms of Men's the same. So, high inspiring ranges on them and being able to reach out. All of these are going to give you options to sort of flood the table with lots of units and play the objective games, really have board control and control exactly where you're going, where your opponent goes. It really dictates a lot. And if your opponent has to chew through all of what you can put down on the table, it makes things very challenging for them. Alpha Strike armies are going to be Elves, Orcs, Undead, Ogres, Forces of Basileia, Forces of the Abyss, the Herd, Twilight Kin, Brotherhood, Varangur, and Night Stalkers. Here you're looking at armies that have access to high attack, 3+ hitting, that sort of thing in their lists. High crushing strength, Thunder's Charge, like I said before. These are armies, elves are going to have things like Drakon Riders, where there's a handful of units that really stand out as being complete blenders. And if you can take advantage of them the way that they're supposed to, their special rules, their speed, those conditions, then what ultimately you're going to be able to do is hit an army on your terms, and if you do it first, you have a very high chance of taking the unit off before they can hit you back, and then you can dictate, the following turn where you're gonna hit next. So it can be a challenging playstyle, but it can be a very rewarding playstyle, because if you get things to go your way, especially on the battlefield and strategically, then you can very easily overwhelm your opponent. It's very important, in my opinion, with these armies to take advantage of really good chaff options. So you want things that are going to allow you to get those first turn or second turn combat engagements that are on your terms. So chaff is very important. You want things that are either going to survive or die exactly how and when you need them to, so that your units can get the charges that they need to. So you want to make sure that you avoid terrain. You want to make sure that you're not countercharging, but getting the first charge, that sort of thing. Shooty armies are going to be found with elves, dwarves, abyssal dwarves, kingdoms of men, goblins, ogres, nature, empire of dust, twilight kin, and night stalkers. So Twilight Kin are probably the kings of this in 2nd edition right now, just because they have access to Vicious, which lets them reroll 1s on damage rolls, and with shooting that can be very powerful. It's very similar with Elves and Elite. In fact, Elves are going to have it a little bit better with Elite because it also applies to their spells and things like that. But when we're talking purely offensive shooting output, Twilight Kin are probably the kings. Everybody else on this list can do it pretty well. Dwarves have access to a lot of standard foot troops shots, and then also war machines, things like the Steel Behemoth that can pump out tons of shots very easily. Kingdoms of Men, multiple units of crossbows, that arquebusiers word French thing that I can't ever pronounce. Lots of, again, war machines that they have access to. Goblins are the kings of war machine use with the war trombones. Even hordes of spitters, things like that are going to be throwing out tons and tons of shots, and some of those have been some of the most devastating armies that we've seen over the years. Ogres might be kind of a strange one to some people, but with things like boomers and shooters, the breath sergeants, those kind of things, they're going to give you the access to put out a lot of shots, either at range from a mobile platform with boomers, or at range stationary long range with shooters. So it gives you a lot of ways to do it. Forces of Nature with the new upgrade in Clash of Kings 19 to the Sylph Talon Riders, having range attacks that way, that's a big deal. Beasts of Nature with Lightning Bolt, lots of access to Lightning Bolt and Forces of Nature, and you can build a pretty nasty list magically that isn't just straight up shooting. They also have access to the Naiads who can shoot, and even the Centaurs who have their bows at range too. So not quite as powerful or potent shooting, but still lots of shooting. Empire of Dust, again, with their chariots, very similar to Twilight Kin in that sense. Lots of ranged options there with the Ammonite Dead Ice formation. Lots of ways to get access to ranged attacks. Again, if you're going to do one of these armies, know that you're going to have a little bit of maybe negative feedback from the community, just because it's very powerful and it doesn't require quite as much skill to just throw out some shots. Night Stalkers even are one that they just have access to 4+ shooting. So you've got dedicated units like the Mind Screech and Spectres, shooting options available in the form of Lightning Bolt, things like that are going to be very powerful as well. They're not really one of the top shooting armies, but you can do it with them. And they really fit better into what I'm going to finish off with as the Finesse Armies. And the Finesse Armies are going to be ones that take combinations of all the other 3 styles and really kind of put them together into a more unique build. Now, these are going to be more challenging. They're called Finesse because specifically they take a little bit more skill to use. You need to know what you're doing or really have a game plan in order to take full advantage of how you want to achieve your battle goals and your strategy. So these are going to be the Forces of Basileia, Forces of Nature, Forces of the Abyss, Empire of Dust, Undead, Rordia, Brotherhood, Salamanders, Trident Realms, and Night Stalkers. So these are ones, again, that probably going to take advantage of a little bit of, surge shenanigans, some kind of, tricks and things like that. You'll see some Monster Mash armies that do these sort of things. So small base sizes that can easily get different arcs that allow flanks to happen. Units that have access to nimble readily, in their army builds, those sort of things. That's, Legal Rorty is going to give you a couple of different options with their cav and the way that they can do things with it. Any of the Archer cav and Nimble cav that you can get around into the backfield of things to trick people with. A lot of times the elemental builds with the forces of nature are going to be, a much more finesse thing that you have to achieve, because these units don't hit hard on their own. If you look at 18 attacks hitting on 4 up with only 1 crushing, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage over the course of the game. So you really have to take advantage of finding ways to crack open, flank charges and specifically difficult, challenging things. And if you want to build an army that has a little bit of shooting, a little bit of grind, a little bit of alpha, and you want to make it all work together, a hammer and anvil style, for example, where you have a unit come in, hits a big heavy block that would normally be a grindy block, but then you want to get in and actually hit it and clean it up with a hammer, this is a good way to do it. So these armies are particularly good at building a sort of finesse style. You can do a little bit of shooting if you want to, a little bit of combat, mix it all together however you want. These are probably the most common build that people would do to start off if they don't want to go completely dedicated to one play style. It's a safe way to build an army because you can really branch off into any one of the 3 from there. So hopefully that helps. Again, find the models that you like. And then from my point of view, find the Mantic models that you like. Not all the armies in the game obviously are armies that we make models for, but there's a lot out there. And the more that you buy, the greater quality is going to go up and the things are going to get better as we continue to produce more and more stuff over the years. So you can see from 2015 when the game really sort of took off to 2019 now, where the quality is revamped completely, and that's because of the input and the feedback and the purchasing power that you guys have. So when you're looking at a new army, consider the Mantic armies. I ask you to, just because it's, as a company, that's how we grow, that's how we get better, and that's how things improve. So take a look at those. They're gonna be found in every single one of these categories, so that's good news. And ultimately, look at what you like, what you want to collect, what you want to buy, and who you want to support. Those are the most important things when building an army for Kings of War 2nd edition in 2019.